Good morning, guys. So I wanted to shoot a video on um, on the concept of loving yourself. It's a concept that I myself struggle with. There, I'm actually doing better than I did 2 years ago. Um, I think that loving yourself is definitely the key to joy and happiness. Um, Not only in your own life, but as well as um, expressing that to others. They can live the same life. That's my, um, my fashions, my, uh, my tattoos, my facial hair, my um, the things that I believe in, the things that I'm into, all that kind of stuff. Do I love those aspects of my life? And if the answer is yes, then there's no need to worry. I can continue on with them. But if they're things that I say no to, or I don't know, then there are things that I need to analyze more quickly, or not more quickly, more efficiently, and see what really needs to change in order for me to love myself fully, or do I just leave it if it's something that I don't know? It's one of those things where you kind of just have to go deeper into it. And so like I said, for the most part, I do still struggle with loving myself, but it's something that I'm not struggling as much as I was 2 years ago. So there has been improvement, but there's room for more. I'm human. I make mistakes and everything. But I just wanted to kind of give you my kind of give you a little bit of a synopsis of where I'm at with loving myself, and that even though I have made progress, that there's still a long way to go. But I also wanted to share with you a video um, who actually goes more in depth with loving yourself. And actually, seeing this video has allowed me to really love myself more and do anything and everything I can to make sure that I'm living my best life possible and that I'm in love with everything about me. Um, and I've shared some of his videos on here before. Koi Fresco Bashidas. The video is called. Let me get on here really quick. The video is called "How to Love Yourself and Awaken Your Heart." It's 35 minutes long. Which may seem like a long time, but personally, I feel like it's really worth.
Quite simply, how to love ourselves. The essence of love and how we can come to embrace it every single day as fully as possible, not only internally, but externally. Not only in the mind, but in the material world as well. Because especially on the spiritual path, the essence of self-love and coming to love ourselves and understanding what the self is above all else is pivotal to making progress in many ways. Because if our perception of the self is skewed, our relation to the body and mind will be skewed, and therefore we will degrade into a way of thought and a way of living that we might not be able to recover from, or that we might not even notice as a major problem. And this is the essence of a lot of the problems I see with people that come to me and ask me about self-love and what it means to love ourselves, is that we rely too much on what we think we should be, how we assume things should be in life, where they should go, what they should do. And this includes the self, the identity, the ego in a way. It is part of all of this. And from my own practice, and from those I work with very often, the issue really isn't self-love. The issue is our misinterpretation of self-love. And this comes through what I like to call the 3 modes of deception with the self. The 3 types of self we base our own individual perspective on, and that...
No, not Ed. Hold on. Sorry, there was an ad there. Don't have to watch that ad.
Perspective on, and that in doing so, incorrectly identify with the ego, I should say, incorrectly identifies with these properties, and it can really easily hurt us. Now, for some, it might empower them or help them, but for the majority of us who don't have what we would call a perfect life at the current moment, at first glance, just looking around where we are right now, this can be an issue. And it stems from 3 things. This is what I consider self-esteem first, the second being self-worth, and the third being self-acceptance. Because it is a trinity. They all impact each other. Our self-esteem affects our self-worth affects our ability to practice self-acceptance. And if we can't accept ourselves, that self-esteem in the first place. So it's cyclical. A problem with one creates a problem with all 3. And that can really hold us back. Now self-esteem is quite simple. Self-esteem is just our conventional view on our ability to succeed and fail, or to do things, which is okay. It's okay to judge ourselves. It's natural, I should say, to judge ourselves on what we think we can and can't do. If you think you can walk to the supermarket, by all means, go for it. But it's also important to be skeptical if you don't think you can jump across the Grand Canyon. There's a difference. The reason is there, right? The logic, the deduction, the rational analysis is there. But the hyper-focus on our confidence and ability to succeed and fail isn't based in the true self. It's based in the ego self. And that's what we're heading towards. And that's where a problem can arise, is our confidence and thusly our esteem in what we can do being based in the limited version of the self instead of the full self. Now, the next one that affects us is self-worth. Self-worth is everywhere in Western society. We see it all across the world because it is just that. It's our value, how much we value ourselves as an aspect of society, as an individual vantage within a society. How much am I worth? What am I worth? Why am I worth this much? Am I really worth anything at all? These are all factors that play into how we perceive ourselves to have self-worth or not to have self-worth. And a lack of self-worth is usually on, again, an ego level, right? On an accomplishment level, on a level of what we can and can't do, what we have and have not done, what we plan to do, our reactions to things in real time. And for those of us who lack self-worth, it can lead down some very dark roads. We see this with a lot of suicide victims. If we think we have such little self-worth that we don't even belong here anymore, people commit suicide in these instances. And that's a huge problem. I mean, we can see that loving ourselves and not having self-worth are deeply, deeply intertwined on this material plane, because we identify our worth with the world instead of our worth with our internal state of being, again, which we will get to in a moment. And the third, of course, is self-acceptance, the notion of how much satisfaction or how satisfied we are with the whole of what we consider ourselves to be. Basically, what are the good and bad of us? What are the pros and cons? And do my pros outweigh my cons? Because if not, how can I accept myself? Am I fitting the bill, so to speak? Am I accomplishing what I was told I could accomplish and what I was expected to accomplish in this world, in this body, in this lifetime? This is the art of self-acceptance. because we are raised in the West on an individual level to aim towards accomplishing something. And that when we do begin to start accomplishing these things, well, we can really start embracing or having self-acceptance. You know, I can't accept myself as a failure right now, as unemployed, as divorced. I can't accept that. I cannot be anything less than a perfect image of what I'm expected to be. If I look in the mirror and the mirror's dirty, well, then I'm not whole. Even though I can see the whole of me, the mirror is dirty. So there are little problems that I must nitpick and mess with and change up. And only when the little things that everybody else around me might notice or might not are fixed, well, then I can begin to accept myself. Then on an identified level, I can begin to say, you know what? Yeah, I really am coy. I am playing the role of coy, or I am being coy quite well. You know, I'm doing good for myself. I can accept myself as I am. I'm accomplishing things. I'm living up to my societal expectations in my community, in my country, and so forth. Now, these might all seem like reasonable things, and they are reasonable on, again, a material plane, on a plane of reality that takes itself seriously. But the reason I call them the Trinity of Deception is because they are the deceptive aspects of what we consider the self to be. Essentially, they are aspects of the false self, the ego self, and not the true self. And because we latch ourselves into this trinity of deception, we believe that we are just our ego self. And that belief is what makes loving ourselves seemingly impossible. It stacks the odds against us in almost every waking moment. We think that love in the West equates to cause and effect, right? I love something because of something. I am in love because this person is a certain way, or because they do X, Y, and Z for me. And this is very, very physically driven. It is the notion of ownership, of control, of possession in a sense. And that leads us astray. This love that we think of, especially with the self, is, do we have ownership over ourselves? Do we have control over ourselves? What is the byproduct of my actions that can lead to me loving myself? The reason we, again, love our jobs is because probably our jobs pay well. Now, we wouldn't love our jobs if they didn't pay us. That's why we...
Sorry.
Now, we wouldn't love our jobs if they didn't pay us. That's why we go. We wouldn't love our expensive cars if they didn't come with many features. And we definitely wouldn't love these cars if they started to break down and somebody came and took all the features away. Would we still love it? Probably not. We'd want to switch. And that's not real love. This happens with people too. And this is why we see issues like divorce so common, is that we fall in love with the material aspects of another human being or of what they have to offer at the time instead of unconditionally loving. We have expectations, wants, needs, which are normal in a society. They're expected. They are part of how you lubricate the wheel of material life and keep it going. But on a soul level, this isn't what love is. One of the core tenets of virtually any religious or spiritual philosophy is that true love is unconditional. True love does not come with conditioning to it. Anything else isn't love. Anything else is less than love. It is emotional spectrums that are not fully embracing the whole. They are embracing parts of the whole. And the self is the same way. If we only want to love ourselves because of what we can accomplish, or because of what we can do, or because of how we view ourselves in this realm of ability, then we're always going to be stuck. We're never going to be able to make progress. Because the true self is beyond this, and therefore love must be beyond this too. True love is unconditional. It is all encompassing. It is embracing the whole for what it is in every moment and doing the best with what is there. Not ridiculing it, not hating it, not doubting it, but seeing it for what it is in this moment and in every moment. And from that point, saying, what can I do to create more progress, to create more love, to embrace others, and therefore, in the same light, to embrace myself. Essentially, true love is aware of the ego's existence, the identified self's existence. And what this means is that the true self is always there. It's always in the back of our mind. It's hidden in most cases, but it's there. And that's our intuitive nature, our simply knowing of thisness, that we are here with it all, that we are experiencing it all. And more so than anything, that we are more than what we perceive ourselves to be. Now, we might not know this right now. Many billions of people around the world don't know that they are a true self beyond the ego self. But that's what this process is. That's what the waking up process is. It's remembering that we are more than just our role. Because the true self, and thusly self-love which comes from it, is the understanding that we are the whole of totality, the whole of reality, incarnating in each moment as this individual, as you, as me, as our friends, as our bosses, as the pets we have in our house, and as the plants we have in our yard. We are taking form in different living spaces. And while in the human form, we embrace the ego role and we accept that we are the ego, the reason we can't love ourselves is because we take the ego seriously. We take our sense of self seriously because that's the only way to feel secure. Because that's what the ego needs. The ego needs this security. All ego wants is security. It wants to know that it is something. A businessman is confident because he identifies and consciously wants to know and reminds himself every day when he gets in a nice car or gets in a board meeting that, yes, I am a businessman. I am this businessman. That is me. Just that, nothing else. I am this. And those of us who play our roles are usually the ones who have the hardest time awakening to self-love. Because there's nowhere to secede to. There's nowhere to step back and watch the self from. We get locked in this notion that we are only what we are experiencing in every moment on this plane of reality. And seriousness, while necessary in many situations, can be destructive. Because we have nowhere to recede to, as I just said, nowhere to return to. If you are playing a video game and you get mad at the game, what do? We turn the game off. We stand up, we breathe, we remember where we are, who we are, that we aren't just this game. Maybe we might go outside. We return to a state beyond our engrossment in this game. Because while we are in the game, what upsets us is that we take the game seriously. You know, if we are at work, we are playing the role of server or waiter or cashier. And somebody upsets us to a great degree, and we get really upset with it, really identify with it, attached to a reaction. What do? We ask for a break. We go outside. We breathe in the air. We remind ourselves of the world around us. Now, we are just in this position right now, playing out a role. That, okay, I'm playing the role of cashier, of waiter, but I'm okay. I'm only going to be here for so long. I get to go home after this. I get to return. Now, what happens when we have those feelings and those emotions in waking daily life, but we have nowhere to return to? What can we do besides repress it? We can't. We get stuck. And that is when we begin to take ourselves seriously. And these notions of self-worth, self-acceptance, and self-confidence begin to deceive us. Because since we believe we have nowhere to go, we are stuck with these things. And if I can't fix it now, I'm just not worthy. I'm just useless. I can't do anything because I can't handle it 24/7. And that is the key in this situation. To find space to return to find a place to return to outside of our roles right now. Essentially, to really love ourselves, to truly awaken to self-love, we can't take ourselves seriously all the time. In fact, I dare say we shouldn't take ourselves seriously at all. We can be serious and act out seriousness when it presents itself and when it is in fact necessary. But to take ourselves seriously is to lose sight of the eternal, to lose sight of the true self and what we really are, and to lose grounding in a space where we can come to love ourselves. Because if we can step back from our roles, from our positionings in society, we see that truly coming to love ourselves is very simple. It just seems impossible because right now we are stuck in this shell of a self that we assume ourselves to be. So with that being said, with that kind of out of the way, how do we step back? How do we, like in a game, pull ourselves out of the game and return to humanity and breathe and relax and center ourselves? Well, life is a game, in a sense. And we have to see it as such. Because there is space to return to outside of what we're doing right now, whether or not you may not know it. And that is residing or taking solace, I might say, in the eternal, the true self, the all-encompassing, as it's known in Hinduism, Brahman, all that can and is and ever will be, never has been, beyond words and conceptions and definition, beyond space and time, all that ever is the totality of what we are right now in human form. What this means to say is that we are, in a sense, the universe incarnating through consciousness to play out the role of human, to play out this human experience and see what it all means and what it's all about and why we're experiencing it at all. Now, most of us aren't aware that we are the totality of being in every moment. We think we are our egos. It would be as if I thought I was just Koi and nothing else. And I was always Koi and I always had to be Koi. Therefore, I had to be a perfect Koi 24/7. And you might feel like that too. We especially feel like that, as we said, in work and in relationships and in positions where our personality must show greatly. But a return to the self, the true self, the eternal self, and awakening that understanding within is how we come to embrace self-love, even on a material level and even on a psychological level. This is essentially what self-realization truly is. It's not self in the Western sense of individuality, myself, yourself, himself, herself. Self, in the true meaning of the word, is all-encompassing. All of existence, all living things, all experiential realities possible is the self. You are just playing out the role of a small sliver of the self, forgetting or not knowing that it's the whole self. You're a piece of the pie, but you might not be aware that you're the whole pie. And because of that, since you are a piece of the pie, you can feel those cut marks, right? You can feel where you were cut off in the same way that if a piece of pie was sentient in some sense, it would say, oh, I was sliced here and I was sliced here. This is odd. I feel cut off. I feel smaller, but I see a whole pie around me. Am I part of that? Well, yes, you are. And that awakening is what we need to truly love ourselves. Realizing that we are the whole is the only thing that can bring us into a true state of self-love, because it wipes away our obsession with these three deceptions. Self-confidence is based on what I can do in the human form, in my form right now. But if I embrace myself as the whole of reality, playing out the role of what I am right now, what my name is, where I was born, what I'm expected to do, I can see that not only am I trying to accomplish things on a small scale, but that I am the whole of reality itself trying to play out the role of me. And if I'm aware of this, I'm doing a pretty good job of remembering. I can be confident, in a sense, in my abilities here in this human body, because I know I'm more than this human body. In essence, through this understanding, my abilities to succeed or fail become less serious. they don't become things I hinge every moment of my life upon. They simply become things that are happening. I'm either succeeding or I'm failing in some sense, and my awareness of that is here. Now, I'm not obsessed with succeeding, and I'm not afraid of failing, because I know intuitively that I am more than just this body succeeding and failing on a human level. And so I can pursue the ability to succeed. I can deal with defeat or failure, but I don't judge myself or hurt myself or destroy myself because of it. This is the essence of self-esteem being overcome with realization of oneness, or embracing totality, I should say. Self-worth is the same way. You know, if I feel value in my ego self as an individual in society, that becomes, again, a lot less serious when you recognize your true self as the universe and all things around you. How can I be so caught up with my perceived human self when I am everything, everywhere, playing out this role of humanity, playing out this role of me, and you playing out the role of you? We're just playing. The same way we don't have a focus on the value of a character in a game outside of the game. We might pick a character because it has more value in some essence, but we don't rely on it or obsess ourselves over it. In the same sense, we wouldn't obsess ourselves over our own self-worth in these situations. What society thinks of us, they think of us. If I'm doing the best I can, I am doing the best I can. And my notion of self-worth to them, while it is there, is not there to me any longer, because I know I am much more than just this perceived identity. In fact, I dare say this perceived identity is only worth as much as I attribute it to be on a conscious level and on a universal level. And as long as I'm stuck in this ego mind, I'm always going to be lacking that embrace of my self-worth, of the whole's worth, which is infinite. And finally, we reach self-acceptance. The acceptance or embracement of our abilities, of our pros and cons, essentially of our stat line. How good am I at this? How bad am I at this? How many times have I messed up? How many times have I succeeded? If I think these statistics, in a sense, are all that I am, well then yes, of course, I'm not going to accept myself if I don't believe I'm doing a great job. If I believe I'm doing an iffy job, well then I can't accept this. But again, seeing it as a game, seeing our true self, the whole self, and living through that self, playing the human role, we see these pros and cons as little things, as just a sliver or an image of what any human has the potential to be. And we don't judge ourselves for it. I mess up many times in many days. But if I took that seriously, I'd become much more afraid of failure. And with this line of thinking, I would also place success on a pedestal. And therefore, I'd be at a disadvantage. I'd be assuming the worst and never expecting the best. I'd be in a place of fear because I take myself seriously. I take my ego self seriously. And so only through embracement of the whole, of living vicariously as the whole, playing out you, do these pros and cons become obsolete and nonsensical? Do they become subjective even to you? In the same way that it's hard for somebody to say whether or not grass is good or bad. If somebody wants to build a parking lot, a patch of grass is bad. But to thousands of bugs on the ground, the grass creates a jungle and an ecosystem. And so we start to see ourselves in this subjective light.
Other
So we start to see ourselves in this subjective light. The notion of good and bad, the notion of our own personal pros and cons start to disappear into this wholeness who knows that we are basing our pros and cons on every subjective experience we see in every day, in our interactions, in our accomplishments, in what we do and how we react. We see them as just that, reactions, with no good or bad. Now, we will form a basis for living, a way of progressive living and helpful living, and we can base our actions on that. But we don't destroy ourselves for our actions or hate the self and the skin we live through because of these pros and cons whatsoever. And the more we live vicariously through the whole, the less our satisfaction comes with this notion of pros and cons, with how well we are functioning as the individual, and the more we become satisfied with the fact that we remember we're the whole. Our satisfaction returns to its source, to knowing that it is everything, and it stops relying on its satisfaction from coming with how well or how poorly we do things. The same way that if we try, and if we truly tried anything, we don't get upset by the results because we know we did the best we can. And that's what life is. It's an entire huge playground of, once we awaken to our true nature, which is everything, we are from that point on practicing and trying, if we commit ourselves to remembering the whole, to doing the best we can in every moment. And doing the best we can is living through love, is being love, which is our true nature. And that is how we can come to love ourselves, by using these steps to try and live out this human experience as best we can, not just for us on an individual and egoic level, but for everyone, everywhere. If we know we are doing everything in our power, and even when we aren't, remembering that we could be, it doesn't become something we worry about. It becomes something we live vicariously through. We love ourselves because we are all things. There's a great saying that goes, "He who sees himself in all beings in himself, never suffers." So how can we not love ourselves if the whole of self, in all its forms, is love at its nature, at its core? If all things are love incarnate, how can we not love the self? We are love itself. We don't have a choice in the matter. We just trick ourselves into believing we are no longer the source. And there are a few great tips and tricks we can use to really love the self and practice out in this way. The first is through the practice of channeling love in daily life. As we said, the way we can love ourselves is by remembering the source. And the way we can remember source, or our oneness, the Brahman, as the soul living out the life, is by thinking of love in every being we see, channeling our love into them and awakening that love in them, or seeing it in them wherever we go, with all living beings. It's a great tool to use. An example of this that I personally use is that if I'm in a supermarket and I'm in line getting groceries or something of the sort, everyone I look at, I try to think of them as nothing but love. You know, you are love, and you are love, and the cashier is love, and the guy stocking the shelves is love. And when I go out in the parking lot, the guy that cut me off is love, and the man standing across the street waiting to cross the road is love as well. By channeling love in these methods, it's a conscious connection between you and that being. And so by channeling this love to others in daily life, wherever we go, as often as we can remember to do so, we remember our loving nature. Loving them reminds us that we are them, and we are the whole. And it becomes a very communal way of living, a very communal way of thinking. We can't hate ourselves this moment or not love ourselves if we are always loving the self that we are in another form. And this is one of the easiest and purest methods to loving ourself, our true self. A secondary method to this is what's known as meditation, and that is loving meditation. Channeling love the same way we channel it with people in our meditation sessions. And this awakens oneness. You know, as we've talked about throughout this lecture now, I can say continuously that you are one, that you are everything. But that means nothing if you don't experience that oneness, if you don't feel that oneness in your soul and heart. And meditation on metta, or love, is a way we can awaken that oneness and recognize it and come to embrace it for the first time, and from that point on, over and over again forever. This mode of metta meditation can be done in many, many ways. One of the simplest through affirmations, through just sitting and breathing, feeling oneness, and at the same time thinking of nothing but love. 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 That I am love. That all is love. That love is what we are. That true nature is love. That the eternal and pure and one and singular whole self is love, is pureness, is bliss, is Ananda, as they call it in Hinduism. This blissful reality that I am incarnating as a human, that I'm living out through as a human, is, at its core, a loving experience. And if I remember that, I can feel that love, and I can be that love, and I can see that love in others. And this is a very simple practice that one can do every single day. And the third step is not to beat ourselves up. We can't get upset when we forget that we are the soul. This practice will take a while. Truly coming to love the self means living as the whole in daily life, playing out your roles the same way I play out the role of koi, the same way you may play out the role of valet driver or plumber, whatever you may be doing in daily life. Embrace that. Embrace your humanity. Play out the human role, but don't take it too seriously. And when you forget that you are the whole, come back to a state of remembering, to being, to recognizing, oh yes, I am all of this. I'm not just me doing this in this job, getting upset because one thing isn't going how my ego wants it to go. I'm everything. And in this oneness, in this remembrance of being everything, it makes embracing the subjective experience that much more enjoyable. It becomes playful in a sense. It becomes a game just like when we play games at home. And through doing this, through remembering our oneness every day, as often as possible, we start to really resonate with that oneness and feel that true self beyond the identified ego self. And this, when this true self becomes an unconscious truth, when we think of the word self, or think of us, or me, as everything, playing a version of myself, self-love is always there. We love ourselves unconditionally, because we know we're just playing out this moment in this way, through this body, as this game. And it stops being something that worries us and that we take seriously and that we get upset over, and it starts being playful. It starts being enjoyable. Even if it's hard or difficult, it becomes a competition in a sense. It becomes curious instead of worrisome. It becomes fun instead of fearful. And the love of the ego, while it might be there on small levels, is transcended and almost blocked out by how deeply we love the whole self, which is everybody and everything, everywhere, including us, playing this identity that we pick up, which is the ego self. And that is essentially how we can come to love ourselves fully, through a few practices and through mindfulness and practice and meditation on the true nature of reality, which is you manifesting out of totality, but that we must remember all the time, as often as we can, that we are this totality, and as is everyone doing everything, even on these material planes. So if that video did help you,
Bravo, man. Bravo. Yeah, a lot of different things to say on that. First of all, I like how he said, that we're playing the role of different people. I'm trying not to cough or hiccup. Where he explains that we're playing the role of something, whether that be the role of cashier, server. In my case, it's the role of dishwasher and spaghetti cook. There are times when my ego decides to get, sensitive, where it decides to be right all the time and decides that I'm going to be upset because somebody misunderstood me, kind of thing. Um and it's not just in work, my ego will decide to do stuff all the time. Like if I'm you know depressed about what's going on with my family, my ego could decide to be hopeless and accept that that's the only way to get through it, is to just let it go on. um and you know that but the thing is to daily, when I wake up in the morning, or when one wakes up in the morning, we all have to make that conscious choice to say, are we going to let our ego self win today, or are we going to let our true selves win today? And I don't know about you guys, but I while I'm not perfect, my intentions are letting my true self win every day. However, being a human who is imperfect, there are times where my ego will be the one stronger, out of nowhere, and win. Um, and that's going to happen sometimes. I'm not perfect, but my goal is for the true self to trump the ego self. Um, Another thing that he said that I really liked was to say that, you know, I myself am love. You know, love isn't just, a feeling you have, or it's a feeling that you express to other people. I mean, it obviously is that, but I think it's more than that. Like it can be, it can take form, you know. Um, like when I watch Clay Fresco, in his videos, and I look into his eyes, and I'm listening to the words he uses and how he's using them. I see love in him. I see God in him. Now, am I saying that he's God? No. But I'm saying that, you know, the words that he is speaking to me are words that, you know, are coming, that they're coming from a place that knows how we need to be true love to other people and use words, um, that show the nature of who God is, if that makes any sense. Um, so like I can go to work, right? Regardless of whether I'm in a good mood or in a bad mood for some reason. And I can go to work and I can go, okay, two things. One, I know that this is temporary. I know that I'm only going to be here for so many hours or so little hours, but I get to, listen to music as I'm working, which keeps me in that calm, peaceful state. And I get to, see and talk to people that I work with that I love getting to know better. I like to, encourage them with something if they're struggling with anything in life, or just being in their presence. And every single person that I work with there, and it doesn't matter if they're an employee, it doesn't matter if they're a manager, I see love in their eyes and in their being. I see the kingdom of God within each of them, and it's just something that, you know, um, kind of going through this this kind of state of, um, you know, figuring out the whole consciousness thing is just something that's really intriguing to me. Um, and you know, and what's interesting is that he also talked about the Trinity of how there's the self-esteem, self-worth, and the self-acceptance, and that they're the three deceptive, tenets of the ego, and how if we buy into them, we will subscribe to the belief that that there is no self but the ego self, and that we need to buy into it, you know? And actually, this reminds me of something that I saw from, I saw a message from Ben Corson where he was talking analysis of, or not the analysis, he gave the suggestion that if you take the word fear apart, F period, E period, A period, R period, and he gave an acronym for it, right? Fear, the word fear would spell out to be not only the word fear, but it would spell out to be false evidence appearing real. And what I could take away from that is, in this video, it actually makes sense, because a lot of times we think that our ego self is it's the only self we know, and we're born with natural instinct to go off of our ego, whatever it may be. But being in the journey that I'm in my life right now, I'm realizing that the ego is actually, while it's always going to be a part of us, it's always going to be the false part of us. It's going to be the false self, you know. That's why I'm reminded of that acronym for fear that Ben Corson gave, is that the ego is something that is false that's appearing to be real, that does such a good job of disguising its true self of being false as something that's real. And coming to that realization of knowing that while this is always going to be part of you, it's not who you truly are, you can then go, okay, so since the ego self isn't who I truly am, then how can I make sure that I try to live my life the best I can to make sure that the ego self does not have the final say? Or how can I make sure that its chances of being in control of my life are lower than is my chances of the true self that I know that exists, you know? And it's definitely a cool thing to be able to dive into these things deeper and everything. And I definitely, actually, after watching this video, I actually feel more rejuvenated. And aside from yawning and everything and being tired after a long day yesterday at work, I just feel like I'm rejuvenated. I feel more peace. I feel more zen. I feel like I'm just loving myself more and more. I'm starting to find things about me right now in my head that I love, and things that I don't know or don't love about me that I need to figure out if I need to change or not. It definitely causes you to think, and it's definitely a great place to be, So I'm going to leave this here. The next video that I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you another video by the same guy, where he talks about the concept that from silence comes enlightenment. So stay tuned for that. I wish you guys a great day, and I will talk to you guys then. Ram Ram. Come on.